Hey, my name is Josh, and today we're going to be talking about the movie Subject. Subject tells the story of a prisoner that is abducted prior to his actual prison sentence and is moved underground to be studied by a secret government organization. I'm just going to start off by saying this is probably one of the most ambiguous films I've ever seen. Like, this movie has a really slow beginning and it has a slow pace to it, but once the pace kind of gets up and going, there's no stopping this. Tristan Barr is the writer and director of this film, and I think he does a really good job at crafting something that feels familiar, but under the lens of something as ambitious as Subject, where it is not afraid to kind of really mess with your mind, kind of play around with that psychological thriller aspect, throw in some sci-fi to it, and ultimately just kind of really kind of ruin you by the end of the film. By now, I feel like we're all kind of used to these quote unquote COVID projects. And I don't know if Subject was filmed during COVID, but you spend 99% of the time with our protagonist, who is played by Stephen Phillips. For as much as I really want to talk and continue praising Barr's direction with this film, and I'll kind of get back to the narrative in just a few minutes, this movie literally lives and breathes with Phillips and as the centerpiece of this film. Like, if you don't have an actor that is capable to convey the crazy complex emotions of this character, then this movie just feels like another forgettable sci-fi movie. But luckily, because there is someone like Phillips who is able to deliver that emotional caliber that this role needs, this movie succeeds with flying colors. This movie is literally only 77 minutes long. It's an easy watch. There are definite moments where I felt like this film lagged and definitely kind of just took a while to find its footing. Maybe that's a comment on me as a viewer and not necessarily Barr as a writer, but it felt like the first act of this movie really struggled to find its voice. There is a past and present narrative that is being told, so as you are watching all of the stuff unfold in the present with Philip's character kind of being studied and slowly losing his mind in the isolation portion of the film, you're also reliving through home movies his relationship with his daughter, his dying wife, and kind of how that really has a large effect on his own mental health that we'll talk about in the mental health section. Having these stories run parallel with one another really emphasizes the ambiguity that Barr brings as a writer to this film. It really makes you question a lot of how this movie ends, also as a result of the character journey that you go on through the 77 minutes. But there are definitely moments in this movie that do drag and that do feel like it's having a little bit of hard time finding its footing. Also, I don't want to say too much because I feel like it kind of gives away the spoiler. There is a monster in here, and the character design of said monster is absolutely gorgeous. So I just really want to highlight Ali Savage, who was the costume designer for this film. I thought they did a great job at really bringing this weird element to this otherwise kind of familiar narrative. If you guys are new to this channel, I'm one of the co-hosts of our horror podcast here at Bisgazing, and I have gone on record by saying that found footage and other films that feel like found footage are my least favorite subgenre within horror. I think it takes a lot to really make me appreciate and like something like found footage. While Subject is not an outright found footage film, it is a film that is adjacent to the genre. Its entire stories are told through security cameras and home movies, and I think it really works for the story that Barr is trying to tell here. Also, because you're so used to it as a viewer by this point, if you're a fan of the horror genre, there are definitely elements within this film that are like tricks, feel like tricks on the eye. Like, this is a film that you really kind of have to pay attention to your surroundings, or else you find yourself a lot like Stephen's character in this movie. All right, I'm going to go ahead and run this through the Rorschach rating scale. I'm going to go ahead and give Subject a 3.5 out of 5. I think this is a very ambitious film. I think it swings big, and though it doesn't always hit the home run it's intending to hit, it definitely has a tremendous performance. I think the camera aesthetic to this is great. Costume and character designs are flawless. It's just some of the pacing of this movie feels a little bit of awkward, and the transitions as well. But you guys can decide for yourself when Subject comes to Screambox beginning August 22nd. And now let's talk about mental health. If you guys are new to our content, Mental Health Moments, where we'll take a theme of mental health out of the film which we're reviewing, talk about it for a few moments in the hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. For as quick of a movie as this is, there are numerous mental health topics to talk about. In the story, in the flashbacks, it's revealed that our protagonist has had some fairly unhealthy coping mechanisms while dealing with the death of his wife. And I'm really not going to expand upon this too greatly. I just want to say that there are healthy coping mechanisms and there are unhealthy coping mechanisms. And the unhealthy coping mechanisms come from things like isolation, isolating yourself from everyone else around you instead of embracing the communal aspect that something like a grieving process definitely requires. Drug addiction, alcoholism, self-mutilation, anything that is bringing destructive patterns or behaviors to your body and mind is just another form of escapism where you're basically still living in the existence, but you're completely denying the reality of the source of your grief. We talked about this recently in an episode of Abyss Gazing where we explored the 2016's The Void, in which we talked about we need the journey of pain and grief because it reminds us actually how precious and important life really is. And I think with a process like grief, healthy coping mechanisms need to be put into practice simply for the fact that it's going to make us better in the long run. Like it sucks really to go through all of the pain and all of the journey and have to face it head on. But using something like drugs, self-mutilation, or alcoholism, or any form of addiction, really your escapism is just a band-aid for the situation. And so if you or someone you know is currently struggling with self-harm, addictions, depression, or anxiety, or suicide, click the links in the description below to check out our mental health resource library. Once again, Subject comes to Screambox beginning August 22nd. Hit that subscribe button below so that way you guys never miss a horror movie recommendation or mental health conversation here at Victims and Villains. And in the descriptions below, you guys will also find links to all of our podcasts, more movie reviews like this, links to our social media and our Patreon as well. So until next time, stay classy.